Right. That was a hard
Wow.
cut. I don't know what happened there. Hello, welcome to Torn Tuesday.
Was that our opening credits? Okay, that worked out fine.
Yeah, that was our opening credits. Anyway, this is your weekly dose of all things Lord of the Rings, all the news that's fit to print, and some that's not. My name's
Well,
Justin,
yes,
and that's
yes.
Clifford Broadway.
And hello there, I'm Clifford. That's Justin, and we welcome you all. As always, you are the most gregarious and creative and wonderful community of Tolkien fans. And with open hearts and open minds, we are all here together to talk about our love of J.R.R. Tolkien. And there might also be some interesting crossovers in our analysis and conversation today as we talk about how the success of one recent Disney Plus TV series streaming on Disney Plus has suddenly got everybody in every fandom talking about what is going to happen next with their own fandoms and their own shows. And how is Andor, and I mean that really, the great success of Star Wars Andor, second season, now that it has been concluded, we're going to take a bit of time and analyze how we might expect the great catapult success of Andor and all the buzz around it might affect the Prime Video series, The Rings of Power, which is now, so I'm hearing through the grapevine, moving directly into its third season of principal photography. We have so much to talk about. I'm going to do my Jordan Rennells real quick. Hello, welcome to the OneRing.net.
Can you do that all the time? Like, you sound great.
I could do this. I could do this all
Chat,
day.
can you tell Cliff to keep
Should
the
I
mic
do
close to his
real
face all the time?
ASMR type of dialogue?
It's not ASMR. It's just
not
nice audio.
Not yet. You know what? This sounds like a quiet, relaxing talk radio program where we talk and share recipes and what we did at the county fair this weekend with our children and all this relaxing kind of feel-good vibes. No, really, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is. I guess it is way better. I'm not making fun of you, Jordan. I love you. We love Jordan Rennells and a long-expected soundscape. We love it. But here we are. We're not talking about chili dogs and, the blue ribbon winning strawberry jam. We're not talking about that today. We're talking about several birthdays that are going to come up right now. Let's start with the weekly news. A big, beautiful birthday that just happened a couple of days ago for Sir Ian McKellen. No, Susan, do not make me start doing Saturday Night Live sweaty balls, because if you get me started, it will never stop. Oh my gosh, do not do that, Susan. I love you, by the way. You guys are great. I'm in the chat talking to our YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, everybody in our Discord. They're all here in our wonderful chat. It's good to see you guys here. I love you. I'm addressing the live chatters. Big happy birthday. Oh my gosh, Sir Ian. Let's take a moment and reflect. Before we get to the other birthdays, we'll take a moment just to reflect on Sir Ian McKellen. Where would any of us be without him? No, I mean that. Where would we be without Ian McKellen?
I tell you where, closer to the mic.
I'm telling you, all right. Closer to the mic. I can't hold the mic like this all day.
Yes, you can. Go get a book.
Are you sure I can?
Go get a book. And put it
I am
close
not
to
doing
your mouth.
this. Okay, can you hear the background fan? Because it was a warm day. I got the box fan in the window blowing air in my direction. Can you hear that?
Chat.
Chat, can you hear that?
Chat, do you
You
want
guys are too funny.
good audio on Cliff or not?
I was just trying to be funny. I'm not trying to change the status quo.
See, look, I just found a book and I'm putting it closer to my mouth.
You are not doing this to me. I've got something better than that. Okay. Over here.
Chat, am I right here? Do we enjoy good audio, chat?
This is one of my copies of Disney Villainous, one of my favorite board games, where you choose a villain and play the villain all the way through to their objective. So why don't I put this right up here? Okay, now I'm kind of like, what? You can't see my face anymore.
I can't.
What is happening?
With you.
You guys are. Oh, all right. I'll turn the box this way. All right. We're going to lean into this microphone. We're going to let you guys have it this week. It is wonderful to have you all here. Happy birthday, Sir Ian McKellen. There was a moment in time when we were standing in Wellington. We were in the Central Business District. The locals call it the CBD, Central Business District in downtown Wellington, where we were there for one big reason. It was the world premiere of The Return of the King. So I'm there in the press area as a reporter. We've got cameras rolling. We're shooting footage and interviewing everybody. And then Ian, bless his heart, he's one of the first of the cast members to come up to the podium and speak to the crowd. And I mean, there was a crowd. Wild how many people were there. And it was just amazing, the crowd, and they were wild, screaming, happy, very thrilled. It was the third and final movie of the Rings trilogy. It was a gorgeous summer day. Of course, it was late December in New Zealand, but that means it was a nice, warm summer day. Yes, back in 63. So Ian gets up to the podium and he says, "Well, hello, everyone. And aren't we lucky to be here?" And I'll never forget him saying that, because the crowd response to him saying that phrase was a wall of noise. It was like a Phil Spector album. It was a wall of noise. It was amazing. People were shouting at the top of their very happy lungs. And Ian was right. He was right to just make a plain, honest observation. Aren't we lucky to be here? And it was wild. I'll never forget it, because he was talking about his life-changing experience being down there in New Zealand for 18 months and shooting all that, 3 movies back-to-back at the same time, and then going back and back again for reshoots. And then at the end of it all, when they were primed and ready to bring the final installment of the Lord of the Rings trilogy into the world, nobody in that crowd had seen it yet. We were right outside the doorstep of the Embassy Theater. We were about to go in, and lo and behold, he says that, and I just fell apart. I fell apart, and I think there's great wisdom in that. Something slightly Buddhist about that observation. Aren't we lucky to be here? So I love you, Ian McKellen, your incredible wisdom, and how you remind us all that life is very short and precious and remarkable. And when there are moments in time when you are enjoying the rarefied air of the New Zealand world premiere with like 1.5 miles of red carpet. They did a ticker tape parade and a red carpet parade for the cast and crew. It was great. And I say, my hat's off to you. We love you. Happy birthday, Ian McKellen. We're also celebrating a big birthday posthumously for Sir Christopher Lee. Happy birthday to you, Christopher Lee. Would he have been 103 today?
I think so. But before we move on, Cliff, I
he would've
found a
been
picture
103
of you from the New Zealand premiere.
Oh,
yes, look at that, folks. Let's bring that full screen.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Let's bring that up, Cliff, so everybody at home can see.
You can't do this to me. You cannot
look
do
at
this
that
to me.
full
Why?
head of hair.
What? And it was purple. Was it colored purple at the time?
It was color purple. You have the One Ring
something.
staff.
Something colored purple at the time. Yes. No, that really actually happened.
Cliff, I do want to say,
That's
you know
funny.
where this picked up? I found this. You have a whole page dedicated to you on fandom. One wiki to rule them all. You have your own wiki page on
I do
fandom.
not.
Yes,
I do
sir.
not. Do I?
You have a whole
No.
thing of your birthday. Dude, look how long this is.
Oh my gosh. No way. I have my own page on fandom? What is that? Show that to me. Why have I never seen this?
So
Oh my gosh.
I am in the midst of an official,
Oh my gosh.
official person of interest in the Lord of the Rings fandom.
I am dying. I'm dying. Oh my gosh. I can't believe
and a
this.
scholar. Eravandi says, "Oh my gosh, Cliff has a page. That photo screams the year 2000." Higgy baby.
Erovandi. Oh my God. I didn't know this existed. This is kind of funny, actually. This is really, 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 really funny. I am dying.
Well,
I
Cliff,
didn't know this existed. I did not know this was
before we
here. What
get
am I going to do?
before we get into further birthdays, it is someone's
This-
special birthday today, and
Can
I
I
promised
tell?
her.
I love her so much. I love this woman, Caitlin. You are the best of the best. Happy birthday, Tea with Tolkien. Happy birthday to you, my dear. It's fabulous to
She
have you.
has an amazing website, and
She
almost all
does.
this stuff is free. She has a beginner's guide to the Silmarillion and the Fall of Numenor, documenting her Rings of Power TV series. She's got so much scholarly articles on Tolkien and Saint Philip Neri, and the eras of Arda. Oh my God, Taylor Swift eras. Count me in.
Eras of Arda. That's fun. That is really fun.
She is just the most wonderful person, and such a great contributor to the community.
She is a wonderful contributor, and her conversations about faith, theology, and the spiritual approach to Tolkien study is refreshing and beautiful, and she is very, very welcoming. She is so welcoming. So if you want to have a spiritual conversation about how Professor Tolkien related to the divine in his life and in his works, and how you yourself can also relate to the divine in your life through Tolkien, then she is the place. She's the place to be. She is the woman to read her stuff. She is so wonderful. I just love it.
And she is Tea with Tolkien, at Tea with Tolkien.
That is right.
On all the socials.
That is
I want
right.
you guys, while you're watching here, I want you guys to go to Twitter or to Instagram or to Blue Sky or wherever you get your social feed, and I want you to wish her happy birthday from everyone at the Turn Tuesday show, because we just love Tea with Tolkien, and we thank her for just her many contributions. But she's not the only one with a birthday today, Cliff.
Well, is it true? I was going to say that Christopher Frank Carandini Lee, who was born on May 27th, 1922. Unfortunately, he shed this mortal coil and went on to another adventure in June of 2015. So he's been gone for 10 years, almost, and I miss him. I miss him. Christopher Lee, I mean, he gained fame. His earliest reckoning with fame certainly was working for the Hammer Studios, and that means Dracula all over the place. But then there was a wild moment where he stepped into the James Bond franchise, and he played Scaramanga in The Man with the Golden Gun. Christopher Lee, you were just an amazing career actor, legendary actor and singer, and prolific, just a prolific actor, wildly prolific actor. And it says here on his Wikipedia page, before his acting career, Lee served in the Royal Air Force as an intelligence officer. So he really was a spy. And he actually did have situations where, in his pursuit of espionage, he had to kill people to save himself in this dangerous career as a spy. So not only did he get to be in a spy movie in the James Bond franchise, but he got to be, a real spy in real life. Oh my gosh. Zap Verasepa in the chat. You are correct. The Wicker Man, absolutely outstanding. And one of the greatest examples of folk horror that you can ever find. He was just amazing. And he met Professor Tolkien. He's one of the only people in the entire cast of The Lord of the Rings who actually met Tolkien while he was alive. And I'm looking that up right now because I want to find the correct quote. Met
while you're looking
Tolkien.
It up,
he had a brief encounter with him in the 1950s, where at the most predictable place where you would bump into Professor John Ronald. It was at the Eagle and Child pub. He literally met Tolkien at the Bird and Baby, right there at that pub. Bless his heart. Just amazing. Amazing. Happy birthday, T. T is with us in the chat. Oh my gosh, Caitlin, we love you.
We just did the
We
whole
love you.
thing for you. Oh
We-
man, you missed it. You're gonna have to
Caitlin,
rewind. We said
yeah.
nice things about you. T
We
with
roasted you. We roasted you like a Comedy Central roast.
Well,
no, it wasn't
Cliff,
that. It wasn't that at all.
I don't want to roast. I want
No.
a very intelligent discussion because
feeling
in our
generous
birthday
today.
posts, in
Yes.
our birthday posts on Facebook and Instagram, we
Yes.
asked the question:
Yeah.
in this era, since it's Christopher Lee's birthday, in this era
Yes.
where his friend, his best friend in the whole world, Peter Cushing, was brought back in Rogue One.
He sure was.
And his other friend, Ian Holm, who was Bilbo in Lord of the Rings, of course, was
Yes.
also brought back in the latest Alien Romulus posthumously. The question
Yeah,
is, Cliff,
they did.
we have the technology. The estate could be on board.
You
if
sound
all
like the
of the-
opening credits of the $6 Million Man. We
If
have the
all of
technology.
rights, if
We
all
can
of
rebuild
the
him.
rights are okay, the family's okay, Christopher
Mm-hmm.
Lee's will is okay, and the studios are okay. I want to know if you're okay with bringing back Christopher Lee as Saruman in these new Lord of the Rings films.
To be honest, I would be just as okay with that as I would be okay with them recasting another actor to play Chris Lee.
So you're 50-50.
I would be either way is fine for me. Either way is fine. Really. Either way is fine.
Did you appreciate Ian Holm in as they used him in Alien Romulus?
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I thought that was really kind of cool.
I did too.
I thought that was really kind of cool. That very youthful looking Ian Holm really, really takes me back to watching the original Alien. And, you know, who else was in that? Wasn't John Hurt? Of all the great British actors, Ridley got John Hurt and Ian Holm to be in the first Alien film at the same time. It was really great casting. Wonderful casting.
Yes, please share T's YouTube channel in the chat. Thank you, everybody.
Yes,
But,
yes.
So I want to get a pulse from the chat room.
Okay.
Because I think fans, just like Cliff here, fandom itself, I think, is 50-50. If it's done well, which I think Peter Jackson is, and the team at Weta Digital are the best of the best, and we can say with a pretty good authority, it could be done well, the best
Yes.
that ever
Yes.
done it.
Well, the
no
technology
uncanny
has
valley.
radically changed in those years since Rogue One. And it's just going to keep changing and keep changing. So, yeah, of course.
So okay, yeah, I thought this was going to be more of a debate, but you're 50-50, I'm 50-50. They've already brought back Peter Cushing. They've already brought back Ian Holm. But the thing that Cliff, I don't know if I sent you this. But
Tell me.
the thing that everybody is kind of gotten their knickers up this last week is they've brought back another recently deceased celebrated character actor. And just to give you a sense of how good the audio AI is.
Is it Don Knotts? Who did they bring back?
He would be great.
Is it-
The ghost of Mr. Chicken is one of my
Yeah, I love the Apple Dumpling Gang. Are you kidding? Don Knotts on Three's Company.
Why are you bringing back all these guys? Bring back Don
Because-
Knotts. Make us
Bring back
laugh
Don
with
Knotts. He
AI.
was the best. I
Well,
love him. He was the funniest.
So I think Peter Serafinovich could be an amazing Saruman going forward. But
Who?
recently, Lucasfilm and Fortnite brought back James Earl Jones. Not just Darth Vader, James Earl Jones. His
Right.
actual voice, fully digitized, and Darth Vader is in Fortnite. He's a fully AI, and he speaks to you. And I have a clip from when I played this week.
I saw some of that. I saw some of that over the weekend.
So I want you guys to listen to the quality of the voice and tell me if Christopher Lee's voice is so perfect for Saruman and Weta Digital can do the visuals perfect,
Yes.
why wouldn't we? Let's take a look at the latest tech when it comes to voice acting for deceased
Well-
actors?
Well,
For Red Lord of the Rings?
I am not a jester to perform on command.
So you've never seen Rings of Power?
The rings of power you speak of, Emperor Palpatine. Is this another exercise in conjuring weapons from thin air? The Sith prefer a more direct approach.
Alright, lead the way.
I lead no one, Emperor Palpatine. I merely point the way to victory. Keep up.
I never thought I'd hear Darth Vader say the Rings of Power.
that's pretty badass. That's cool. That's actually
Right,
pretty
and-
cool.
And I just got, and I made this one today.
But wait, you were playing as the Palpatine character, right?
I was playing as a Palpatine character.
And that's why Darth Vader was addressing you.
Sentiments for those who prove their mettle, General Grievous. This Sauron seems content to brood in a tower. How does his power manifest on the battlefield?
No way. Play that again.
You want to hear
Play
that
that again. Yeah, play that again. That is so cool. That's interesting.
Grievous. This Sauron seems content to brood in a tower. How does his power manifest on the battlefield?
His relationship with Galadriel, the Great Warrior.
This Galadriel you speak of, General Grievous, would her martial prowess withstand the might of the dark side? Or is she merely another pawn in a futile game?
Oh my gosh. That's wild. Wow, that is really
More
wild.
powerful, you say, General Grievous. Power without focus is a dangerous thing. Does this supposed power translate to control of the battlefield? Or is it merely a fleeting burst of energy?
Wow, you can just have full-on conversations with Anakin right there.
More powerful than I? General Grievous, your grasp of power dynamics requires adjustment. Does this Galadriel command armies, or does she simply possess the ability to bake Lembas bread with undue force?
What? They've got Darth Vader talking about making lembas bread.
He's
I have-
insulting Galadriel?
He is. That is wild. That is wild. Oh my god, that is really kind of wild, man. That is. I can't. I can't.
Vader.
That is so
Vader
crazy.
Is telling Galadriel to get back in the kitchen?
No. He's like, are you sure that she has power, or is it only because she makes elvish whey bread?
Let's go back.
That
Let's
is-
play that back. Let's
That
play
is
that one back.
too much. That is too much, dude.
Does this Galadriel command armies, or does she simply possess the ability to bake Lembas bread with undue force?
With undue force? Oh my gosh. That is crazy.
Clip. We got
never-
Darth Vader,
I-
James Earl
I never
Jones,
thought-
Darth Vader talking about Rings of Power, talking about Galadriel commanding forces, talking about Galadriel making lembas bread, which is a uniquely elven delicatessen.
How did all of that dialogue get into that character? This is
That's what
insane.
I'm saying. This
It's
is the
insane.
magic
I
of
don't-
AI as we speak today. Never mind that
crazy.
Hunt for Gollum is coming out in over a year time, 2 years time. Okay, Cliff. If this is the current state of AI, I think we're in a position to recreate Christopher Lee's iconic voice and make him say anything we want. Because look at what they've done with James Earl Jones.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, for many, many, many years, from like 2008 to the year 2020, they had Corey Burton as the voiceover artist doing Count Dooku in all of the animated Star Wars, The Clone Wars. And believe it or not, Corey Burton did a remarkably good Christopher Lee. He did a
Well,
great
the
Christopher
wonder
Lee
of
voice.
Tolkien is in the chat room saying, not going to lie, that sounds good.
He did 63 episodes. Corey Burton did 63 episodes doing the voice of Christopher Lee for Lucasfilm. for all those animated series. So, they could always do something like that. But, and hello, look, is it the wonder of Tolkien? Hey, it's great to see you, my friend. Lovely to have you in the chat. There's Angel, and there's Spartan343. Oh, all the usual suspects are here with us today. Hi, Cecilia. It's good to see you. And hi, Jean.
Cappuccino.
Yeah. What is that? What are you playing now?
Well, here's my other option.
I can't.
So you guys know that I'm
That is
all
really
pro
funny.
AI.
That's really funny.
It's pro, and it sounds great, and it just sounds
great.
It does not
It
sound
sounds
like
great.
a computer recreating the voice. It sounds like the voice. But if we were to recast Saruman, and a very important, iconic character, let's consider my guy who was the voice of Darth Maul in Star Wars Episode 1, Peter Serafinovich. Let's take a listen to this clip.
Delicious.
I'd love to be a pasta designer.
You could be. I'm not fussy, and I wouldn't make a fuss about things like come down with me. Babies. They are babies.
Isn't it?
It drives me mad on that.
Yeah.
Well, here, let's fast forward.
Right. So I'm from Liverpool, and Cartoon Tea, which was Desperate Dan from the Dandy. Remember, he had a big pile of mashed potatoes.
And you have the sausages stuck out.
Stuck in, yeah. And yeah, so my mom would do that.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And then now, like when you are, say, gonna have one of your dinner parties, which you're on next week, what would you do? What's your dish that you're most proud of? Your one that you could really be like, I know it's good.
I think out of all the one dish that I know, it would probably have to be that one dish.
That one.
Yeah, the carbonara pasta.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think if I think I'd probably learn a new dish. But what a thing to sit there and just eat this amazing food, and then just occasionally chip in to just kind of stir up.
Fantastic. And do you know who has the box?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
And do the viewers know? Yeah.
The viewers know.
Yeah.
And it was great doing this thing. It's like in real time. They would have breakfast. I would go in and tell them about some kind of thing about the millionaire. I'd say to them, the millionaire's got a challenge to do, so be on the lookout for any odd behavior, right? And then I would leave them. And then I'd go up to my dressing room, and then I would see them all talking about me and saying, well, did you hear what Peter said about that? Because the way he looked at you, I thought that maybe...
That's just a little sample of a very fresh...
This is the guy who played the Tick. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Okay.
He's got a great voice. He is a voice actor. So he can get into character, and he does an amazing... He can do an amazing Christopher Lee.
He did a character in Guardians of the Galaxy, and he also did recent voice work for the James Gunn animated series Creature Commandos, which was really quite good. Holy Toledo, he's been a voice in Rick and Morty as well? Wow.
Well, not only that, this man,
Wow.
Peter Serafinovich,
Wow.
he
Okay. He's
is
been in
the
everything.
He is the voice of Christopher Lee in the documentary, The Life and Many Deaths of Christopher Lee.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay.
Let's
Wow,
see if
how
we can
cool.
bring it up. Which I would just talk to the director, this morning, and they don't have a distributor for the USA yet, so we're looking forward to it. But this documentary, Peter Serafinovich,
Wow.
actually performs as the voice of Christopher Lee.
Wow. Okay.
And so
Okay.
if we were to recast, I think Peter Serafinovich is a great choice. You put a big wizard wig on him, and a big beard. I think he can nail the voice and the acting. But, Cliff,
Yes.
now that you've heard the latest in AI technology on Fortnite, are you still 50-50?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally fine. Either way, I don't mind. because I've been very happy listening to Corey Burton for years and years and years and thinking, wow, that sounds a lot like Christopher Lee. So I'm totally fine with anything. To answer you in the chat, which character did he play in Guardians of the Galaxy? It was a character named Denarian Saul, whoever that is. Denarian, Saal, Saul.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Cliff, should we
true
get
point. The Wonder of Tolkien points out that voice and acting is different, however.
He is an actor, and he can
is.
act.
Yeah. He is.
He's been in some incredible stuff. Well, Cliff, we have other big news. Huge news in Rings of Power Land. Huge news in
about the
Merchland.
cancellation of the
Hold
Wheel
on.
of Time.
You're getting way ahead. You're getting way ahead.
Oh gosh, don't do that.
What does that have to do with? What does that have to do with anything, Cliff?
Because a lot of people are talking about the cancellation of the Wheel of Time. A lot of people are broadly speculating that it might impact what Prime Video is doing with other shows.
Well, it's
Just
already
speculation.
impacting because currently if you log into Amazon Prime Video on your TV,
Yeah.
you can see that Rings of Power is trending. Why is it trending? Because every single article about Wheel of Time's cancellation mentions the Rings of Power.
And doesn't it though? Well, and that causality is normal. That is a normal way that people are connecting the dots.
Wait,
It's completely normal for
when
people
they
to think that.
canceled Acolyte, did everyone say, "Oh, Andor's next"?
No, but they looked at all the other things that Lucasfilm dialed back. They were going to do a lot of other series and other shows, and they dialed back on a lot of content. A lot. And that's been happening gradually over the past 16 months, hasn't it?
Well,
really?
our job here is to inform you, the fandom, and I want to tell you right now, Rings of Power is safe. It's currently in production, and it has not blown through its budget. As we reported back in 2019, our sources state that the entire 5-season series of Rings of Power has a fully committed, already banked, never changing budget of $3 billion. They've only spent half of that on the first 2 seasons. So there is plenty of money in the bank. Jeff Bezos gets richer and richer every day, and it's only getting stronger and better. Rings of Power is. So do not think that anything's on the chopping block. Do not believe any articles that say, well, they can use the budget from Wheel of Time into Rings of Power. Rings of Power is so expensive that if you cut the budget in half of Rings of Power, as it is right now, it is still more expensive than Andor, which is the most expensive Star Wars thing ever.
Really surprising. Andor was the most expensive thing ever that Star Wars ever made. That is really surprising to me. And they didn't use the volume, or they very limited use of shooting anything inside the volume. It's
less than half than the budget of Rings of Power. And
wow.
Rings of Power has a fully committed 5-season budget of $3 billion. That's our Green Dragon gossip. We've been reporting on that since 2019. No one has told us otherwise at any point. There are many times that some studio exec could have been like, hey, you guys got that wrong. So we're going with it. So don't get scared. Don't be nervous. Don't think that Rings of Power is next on the chopping block. It's not. Its budget has already been confirmed and committed. We're in a good spot, and we're going to see the story to completion.
And that's totally cool. I'm glad to hear that. But I don't think that anybody should be blamed, Justin, for making a causal connection in their mind, because the studio is notoriously silent. It's like a vacuum, a black box of zero information coming out of them. So getting the chance to speculate is normal. That is a normal thing, right?
And I will allow this. Wheel of Time is the very first show that Amazon has canceled that had a loyal fan base. Netflix is infamous for canceling shows with fan bases. They do it all the time. Netflix does.
They did it to the Dark Crystal, and I'm still pissed off at Netflix.
Disney just canceled The Acolyte.
And they also canceled Willow. The
And
wonderful
Willow.
TV series Willow. They canceled it. Yeah.
So even though Amazon Prime Video has canceled some shows, but they had not. This is their first big show. Wheel of Time is Amazon Prime Video's first big show that they've canceled that had already amassed a loyal fan base. And so this is the first time that this is the first time Prime Video has been associated with the whole fan feedback of canceling a fan favorite show. But
I heard of all the Wheel of Time fans that I talk to, and there's a lot of them, they have said, "Oh, what a great improvement season 2 was," and they loved it. They were loving the show. So, what do you think went wrong there, Justin?
I don't think anything went wrong. I think it was just underperformed. I just think, if the viewers don't show up, the viewers don't show up.
Okay.
Last when one of our wonderful admins in the Discord wants to know, Cliff, now that Rosamund Pike is free, do you want her in Lord of the Rings?
Yes, I want Rosamund Pike to appear in Middle-earth. She is my Gone Girl, and I want her in Middle-earth. Thank you.
As what role?
Anything. She could read from the Middle-earth phone book. I don't care. She could read straight from the Middle-earth phone book, if there was one.
I would like
anything.
Rosamund Pike to play the role of Gilraen, Aragorn's mother.
Oh, yes, but we're not going to even get to that part of the Third Age in Rings of Power.
I don't like your attitude.
That's way in the Third Age, bro.
Bro, Amazon has rights to the Third Age. Amazon has rights to spin-offs. And also, I'm not just talking about Amazon.
Okay, yeah.
Warner Brothers
spin-offs.
can step up. And, Peter Jackson is not directing Hunt for Gollum. Andy Serkis is. So anyone can raise their hand.
Andy Serkis should bring Gilraen to the screen. Let's have Gilraen on the screen with the New Line Cinema version of Middle-earth, because that's where we would be
starring Rosamund Pike
in the Third Age. Yes, everyone in the chat is going, yes, 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 yes.
How about we do a swap? How about Amazon picks up Dark Crystal and Netflix takes over Wheel of Time?
Okay, sounds great to me.
Easy swap?
I am sure, because it's all filmed in England anyways. They have all the sets in England for the Dark Crystal. They had everything built and ready. It was too bad they just didn't start immediately on season 2, because those are difficult sets to build. All the puppeteering is done below risers, so they build the entire set on risers.
We got more news to talk about.
I can't. You're going to tell me I can't say one sentence on my fucking show about Dark Crystal? Excuse me.
Watch your
Excuse me.
Excuse
I'll give you
me.
language, Missy. I'll give you language, Missy.
I'll give you language.
I'll give you language.
Miyazaki.
I'll give you some language. Here's the thing. It's an economy. Because there's such high investment and high risk in making these big streaming shows, you have to make economical decisions. And it never made any sense to me economically that they would just tear the sets down like that after building them. They should have just continued. It would have been so much cheaper to continue if they had done. But anyways, neither here nor there.
Moving on, Lord of the Rings: Rings of Power is hitting syndication. Cliff, Amazon is selling the rights to Rings of Power to syndication to air on other networks.
That's true. And then Otaku Senpai in the chat had just said a minute ago, I don't think there's really enough episodes, numerically speaking, to warrant interest in syndication. Because what? There's only 16? Is there only 16 episodes total?
You used to have to have minimum 50 episodes to get into syndication. What this tells me, Cliff, is Amazon is pre-selling all future seasons of syndication.
What does that mean? Oh wait, who pre-sold all national distribution rights? New Line Cinema got the financing for the original Lord of the Rings trilogy because they went and pre-sold all of the foreign markets. That's how they did it.
I think
I get this.
You're not just buying the 2 seasons of Rings of Power. You're buying the entire 5-season, 50-episode epic.
I see.
Rings of Power.
So the syndication purchase is also for episodes not yet produced.
I believe
right?
we don't know for sure, but standard issue television is syndication is only interesting if you have 50 or more episodes.
Right. Okay.
Does that mean that they're
Fascinating.
selling the rights to other movie companies? No. Cliff, can you explain syndication?
Can I? Not accurately, but I can try. Another distribution channel like one like A&E, Arts and Entertainment Network, A&E,
TNT,
or
USA
yeah,
Network,
TBS,
Bravo.
these other channels that are still broadcasting on basic cable, believe it or not, they don't produce anything themselves. They spend their money acquiring stuff that other people have produced.
Older
And-
shows. That's why you can watch
Yeah,
Suits
older
any day
shows.
of the week, or Ridiculousness 20
That's
hours
exactly
a day
right.
on MTV.
There is an exception that the Hallmark Channel self-produces all of their own crappy
During Christmas.
holiday movies,
That's
all their
charming and
Christmas movies.
wonderful. And
They're
shout out to all my
crap.
friends that work at Hallmark. It's a very good paying job, and it's consistent work.
I love-
Something
yeah,
we
sure.
all
I-
wish we had.
I have a 77-year-old grandmama who loves watching Hallmark Christmas movies, but I have a zero tolerance policy for Hallmark movies. But whatever. Okay,
that's fine.
Okay, so here's the thing.
But
Let's
it's
talk
not
about
just the- it's
syndication.
not just
Let
the
me give you
USA.
a classic example. I Love Lucy was shot by Desi Lu Studios, and that's also the studio that was owned as a business. It was owned by Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball, and they made other TV shows you might have heard of, like Star Trek. Desi Lu Studios was the producer, and they worked with all these people, and then suddenly a show like I Love Lucy and Star Trek, years and years later, would be repurchased in a bundle for syndication so that other broadcast networks could air the shows. That's basically how the marketplace works. Is that sort of not
and
quite?
it's not
that's
just
about
the
it,
USA. We're talking local television cable networks in Italy,
Yeah.
and Brazil, and Japan, and India, and every country under the sun can license Rings of Power to re-air all of these episodes currently and possibly in the future of Rings of Power. Which this tells me, Cliff, that this is the first step in Prime Video building the audience bigger for Rings of Power, making it more accessible. So when we get to season 3 in a couple years, it's going to have a bigger audience ready to watch with us.
That makes sense. I never thought
And
of it
that's
that way.
good.
That makes sense.
It's a good. So,
Yeah.
so I know everyone's depressed about the Wheel of Time cancellation. Don't be worried about Rings of Power. It's well funded. Everyone's
Yes.
getting nervous about this. Like, is Amazon giving up on it? No, they're not. This is just a way to grow the audience
Yeah,
as we
I
get
get it.
into the really interesting new seasons.
I get it. Anonymous girl in the chat, she says, so basically, shopping the rights around to multiple TV channels like Supernatural and Charmed, as they showed reruns of those shows on TNT. That is correct. That's
Yeah.
correct. Just like that.
So, so that's some like really good news with Rings of Power. Other good news with Rings of Power, Cliff. Interesting. We got some
Tell me.
data this week from Andor, and we'll get to our main topic of conversation, Andor, in a couple minutes. But the viewing stats are always delayed for the streamers. But we have the first week season 2 numbers for Andor, and guess what? It matches week 1 of season 2 of Rings of Power.
I saw some other videos that were on the air. I think I was watching Eckhart's Ladder and other YouTubers talking about those numbers. Yes.
So
It's fascinating.
Andor, which premiered the first 3 episodes of his second season, logged 720 million minutes watched. That's at the bottom. And then on the top, look at this. The first 3 episodes of Rings of Power that dropped for season 2 got 710 million minutes watched.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
I mean,
Okay.
that is basically, I mean, that's 99%. I mean, they're basically the same number. So,
Yeah.
Andor season 2, season premiere, 3 episodes, got the same viewership as Rings of Power season 2, 3 episodes. And everybody calls Andor the greatest thing Star Wars has ever done.
It's the bee's knees. It really is.
And so whatever you think about Rings of Power, I want you to think about this. If Andor is Star Wars at its best, and you have a different opinion about Rings of Power and its quality, well, it still matches Star Wars at its best. Lord of the Rings is so good. Tolkien's stories are so popular and so well thought out and so humanist that Rings of Power on a bad day is equal to Star Wars on its best day.
That's a very interesting observation.
I'm just saying.
That is a very interesting observation.
I'm just saying.
Well, the thing is, we don't ever get to see actual numbers, do we?
Who can trust any numbers? Cliff, we've got more news. Let's
Okay.
move on away from Rings of Power. Embracer Group has officially renamed the company. And they've chosen
they
a
have.
name from Lord of the Rings.
The Embracer Group is no longer going to be this weird name that nobody can connect to.
And I don't know why this Nintendo website shows why do I have this link up? There were so many other better things. So ignore the weird Gollum pic. The group will be stewards of the commercial rights to J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, as well as intellectual properties Kingdom Come, Metro, Dead Island, Killing Floor, Darksiders, Remnant, and Tomb Raider. And it will be
That's right.
called Fellowship Entertainment.
Really? Fellowship Entertainment.
That's right. Let's zoom in on that. They are calling the Embracer is renaming itself Fellowship Entertainment.
Wow.
Cliff, what's your take on renaming the whole company after Lord of the Rings?
It's totally fine. Fellowship Entertainment. That works. That works fine.
What about
It's
all the
better
rumors
than,
of like, oh, Embracer's just going to sell Lord of the Rings?
Nah, well, no, they're not. They know a good thing. They know a good thing when they've got their hands on a good thing, and that's why they invested in it in the first place. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall, working with in that room where they made the deal with the Solzents people. I would have loved to have seen that deal negotiated. I wonder what that was like. But hey, what's wrong with calling them Fellowship Entertainment? That's totally
great.
fine.
It's
I
great.
guess.
And
It's
it shows a
better
commitment
than
to Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, well, it's better than some horrible defense contractor company, stealing names without licensing them.
They should.
You know,
Well, we talked about that last week. That was last week's episode. If you want to go back on our YouTube channel, an incredible conversation happened last week, but we don't need to get into that. So Fellowship Entertainment is coming out. Hey, Nerd of the Rings posted this, Cliff.
Yes, he
I
did.
can bring it up full screen. Nerd of the Rings posted this on Friday. A new Lord of the Rings trilogy soundtrack vinyl from Rhino Records. Sounds good, right?
It looks great. Is this a particular?
6 LP. The vinyl records are so out of print that if you try to go on eBay, expect to be paying $500 per movie. So this is a
Wild.
6 LP. But Cliff,
Is
when I
this
went to
different from the
website-
complete recordings? This is not the complete
But
recordings, is it?
look what happened to the website today.
What?
They took it offline.
Did they get hit with too many orders at once?
No, look at this.
Did-
If I
did it-
if I
did
search
it-
for Lord of the Rings,
Did it crash their servers?
no, look, it's not even on their website anymore. They
Wow.
took Lord of the Rings completely off their website.
There's a lot of Metallica, that's for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of Metallica.
So,
wow.
So I don't know if
Which
Matt
is cool.
should delete this post. I don't know if it was accidentally revealed. I don't know if it was scooped by Matt or something. But they took it off their webpage. So I don't know what to believe anymore. If this is coming out. But
So,
you know what is coming out? Lego's new Lord of the Rings Balrog set.
Oh my god, that Balrog whip looks like he's taking a pee on Gandalf. That is so bad. Oh my gosh.
Your mind is in a weird place today.
No, that joke has been on Reddit all day long. I guess there's a very different idea about The conflict between two Maiar attacking each other in Khazad-dûm. That doesn't even look like a fiery whip. It looks like he's taking a whiz. That is so funny. That is so funny.
You can move
so
the
funny.
arms. You can move the arms. It's just a poor photo.
Hey, last one is like, I thought the same, Clifford. Everyone thought that.
All right. Well,
I mean, I do think this is really cool. Oh, it's a book nook. Okay. I mean, all they had to do was just reposition the fiery whip. That's all they had to do for that photograph. It's so dumb. But look it's a tiny little book nook. How cute is that? I totally dig that.
yeah, it's super fun. All right.
How much is that going to run you? How much is that going to cost you getting this?
Do they say on this article?
I'm quite
the
curious.
Balrog book.
The book
Lego
nook.
Lord of the Rings book nook is available to pre-order now. Should we click and find out?
Let's see where we go.
Let's take a bet, Cliff. Let's take a bet.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much do you think that Balrog book nook?
It's in between $40 and $50.
You think that's a $40 or $50 thing?
I think so. Yeah, that might be up to $50. I think. What do you think?
I think it's $120.
120, and I think it's 50.
Yeah.
Am I crazy?
Chat.
Maybe I'm
you got
crazy.
you got any guesses, Cliff? And by the way, this is not Price or Right rules. We can go over.
Okay. Susan says 150. Dan, you're funny. He says $69. That's a great number. Okay, Dan bites says 69. Susan says 150. Who else? Do you guys have other values you want to bet?
All right, we're gonna
Yes,
go
there's
for it.
Aragorn broke his toe.
We're gonna click the link. Pre-order it now. Jeez, why is every?
You are so blocked. Is that your virtual private network? No way. It is $130.
We were both under.
It's $130. That's too much money, especially for a little thing like that. I'm gonna address Aragorn broke his toe. Thank you and welcome to our live chat, my friend. No, there is no update of any kind on any potential 25th anniversary Unicorn Edition in 4K ultra high def with new bonus features of the original LOTR trilogy. There is no word about it at all. But you know what? Time is ticking. And if they are going to make anything about it, they better get started.
I don't
if
know
they're
if
doing
this is
anything.
tariff price. I don't know if this is tariff pricing.
Tariffs? Yeah, of course the tariffs are going to drive everything up.
Well, it's
you
not
know,
500.
I'm
How
surprised
many
that.
pieces? How many pieces?
Oh yeah, how many pieces? Please look that up.
1,200.
1,201 pieces.
129. Dang, we were both wrong. All right, let's move on, Cliff. We got more news.
We do, and we have a discussion to have as well.
Well, friends of fans were busy this week. Look at these wonderful photos.
Oh,
of
look at how
Kate
beautiful they are.
Blanchett and Juliette Binoche presenting the Cannes Grand Prize winner, the Cannes Film Festival Grand Prize
Wow.
to an Iranian director who's been in jail for 20 years for his last movie. The Iranian government put this man in jail for 20 years so he would stop making movies critical of Iran.
Because art is dangerous, isn't it? True art is dangerous, and it can change the world. A real artist can change the world. And that's what the Iranian government put him in jail for. They're afraid. So that's really brilliant. I love it so much. I totally love this. This is great.
She looks great. She looks stunning. You put a glow filter on her like Peter Jackson did 20 years ago. And I'm ready for Cate Blanchett to come back as...
Did you see her recent film with Michael Fassbender? Black Bag?
It's great.
It was a spy thriller. I didn't see it. Was it any good?
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, I want to go check out that movie. I really want to check that out.
Cliff, here's an interesting thing. These pictures gain a whole new meaning when you think about the fact that they are Bilbo
Yes.
and Sauron. Yes, that is Sauron. That's the actor that played Sauron in season 2, episode 1 of Rings of Power. Yes, the one that has the crown crushed into him, and he turns into black goo. This
that's
is
the guy.
Sauron And
That's the guy who played Sauron before he got killed by Adar and the orcs. So wow, look, there's Bilbo and Sauron. How cool.
Bilbo back there is Sauron yelling at Bilbo.
Oh my goodness. You know, Martin Freeman is aging so gracefully. He looks very interesting. He's aging very gracefully. I got to say that. Good for you, Martin. Good for you, Martin.
I love Bilbo and Sauron doing a thing together, just like Bilbo and Gollum did Wakanda together.
They're on stage. What is this show? They're you know what? You know, I'm a stage actor at heart and always have been since I was very, very young. And my heart is not really with television and film as much as it is with live theater. That's why I feel so close to Ian McKellen and the other New Zealand actors who are mainly stage performers. But tell me, what is this show that Martin Freeman is in?
I didn't get that far in my research.
All right, let's find out. I'm curious. My sister, Tiffany, is going to fly to London next month, and she's going to go and see the stage musical of My Neighbor Totoro. And that was your Miyazaki Minute. That was it.
Well, if she's
that was your Miyazaki Minute.
If she's
right
flying
there.
over there, then she can meet Robert Strange, who plays Glug. at
Glug,
London
he's so cool.
Comic-Con,
He's a
July
funny guy.
5th and 6th.
Robert is a really, really funny and cool guy. He's a really cool actor. I like Martin. Robert. I love Robert a lot.
Yeah, so Robert will be at London Comic-Con July 5th and 6th.
That's so cool. All right, so let's get to the main analysis of our episode today.
Well, you know, the big conversation that everybody's been talking about is Andor.
Yes, and rightfully so.
And everyone's just been having fun with it. Let's bring up a quote. One of the great thrills of making Andor is the scale of the story and the number of characters we're able to meet. Ordinary people, imperial overlords, passionate revolutionaries. They are real people making epic decisions, all of them staring down questions with terrifying consequences.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's start off with this. Tony Gilroy.
Yes.
An incredible talent.
Bless his heart.
He wrote and was nominated for an Oscar for Michael Clayton, I believe.
Yep, Michael Clayton. What a movie. If none of you in the live chat, raise your hand if you've seen Michael Clayton or not, because it's a remarkable movie. It also stars Tilda Swinton. And you know what? That's another actress who I think should have been in Middle-earth a long time ago. Tilda Swinton. Really. I'd like to see her show up in Middle-earth, really.
Tony Gilroy, I'm trying to find... to find a photo of him, but...
It won the Oscar. Michael Clayton did win the Oscar for... Best Achievement in Directing nominee. It was Tilda Swinton won Best Performance for Actress in a Supporting Role. Tom Wilkinson was nominated, but he did not win. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, Tony Gilroy was nominated, but he did not win. The person who won from Michael Clayton was literally Tilda Swinton herself. George Clooney was nominated as well, but he didn't win.
So Tony Gilroy is an accomplished thing, and so I just want to start there. Let's compare apples to apples, because I think a lot of fans feel it's unfair when we compare things that don't compare. Rings of Power is the most expensive TV show in Prime Video history and television history. Rings of Power has, according to many of the articles and interviews over the last 3 years, Rings of Power has been has had the full commitment of the studio. The showrunners of Rings of Power have had unlimited support from the studio. They've been shielded and protected from many other voices. They talk about that in their interviews, how it's important to know what voices to listen to and which ones to kind of drown out.
Yeah.
And so you have unlimited budget. You have a giant franchise with very well-established rules and characters. And you have a studio that supports you. That's Rings of Power. Well, the same thing happened to Andor and Tony Gilroy. He's gone on record saying that this is the most expensive show, most expensive anything Star Wars has ever produced. It cost more to make Andor than any of the Star Wars movies. He had full, complete support of Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm, the studio. He was protected from other voices at the studio and at Disney for changing things. And he had to deal with, the legacy of a bunch of famous characters that we all love in our hearts, as well as talk about a new story.
Yep. And he was in between a rock and a hard place in a certain way, because he had a narrative demand to tell the story, but he was also locked into the things that already existed in Rogue One that was itself already locked into things that had happened with A New Hope from 1977. So yeah, these things are locked into a certain narrative demand, a place that cannot be changed. And yet he needed flexibility for his story, and he got it. He said a lot about how Kathleen Kennedy protected him during this production.
Yeah. So unlimited budget, full support of the studio, protection from other factions and voices.
Yes.
And you have to deal with the legacy of canon. And that
indeed.
is something that Rings of Power has struggled with. Our perception of canon, our perception of what we took away from the books and how Tolkien wrote some of these characters. Here's an interesting clip of Tony Gilroy and how he deals with canon.
Canon, I mean, canon doesn't, I usually try to deal with it, and I'm really sympathetic and into it. I was annoyed to find out that somebody had, in the interim between Rogue and that, had written an origin story for K2, and it's like, no, I'm not paying attention to that. We're not doing that. And you talk about canon, I mean...
So...
well, he's referring to the Marvel comic books, which are considered extended Star Wars canon after the Disney takeover.
Yeah.
And there is a very, very good Darth Vader comic book series. Justin, you've seen it, I'm sure. It's excellent, really excellent story.
The interesting thing about Star Wars and Rings of Power is that Rings of Power is headed up by all of the Star Wars team that made Star Wars Episode 9 Rise of Skywalker. Lindsay Weber is famously the third in command, right? She works alongside the showrunners Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne. She took over the production when they went on strike during the WGA strike. Lindsay Weber left Bad Robot after Star Wars 9 to make Rings of Power. That's not the only one. The other lead VFX producer, Callum Green, signed an exclusive first look deal with Amazon, and he is responsible for all of the visuals of Rings of Power. All of the stuff that we love. It looks great. It sounds great. All of the 20 visual effects studios that work on Rings of Power all report to this man. He was also a producer on Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker.
I see. So the DNA, the whole J.J. Abrams camp, and all the DNA of Bad Robot is deeply embedded in the DNA of the Rings of Power.
That's right.
From the get-go. Okay. I follow.
That's right. So, the Rise of Skywalker team, basically their next job was Rings of Power. It's pretty crazy that now we're talking about Andor, who Tony Gilroy kind of acted on his own to get Andor going. And this is an interesting thing. As
Oh, look at this.
So this is Tony Gilroy talking about new up-and-coming actress, newly discovered. And Rings of Power famously
She
hired
plays
a bunch
Clayla.
of...
Doesn't Elizabeth
It's
Dulau
her
play?
It's her first project ever. It's her first movie role ever, TV show
Yes.
ever. Rings of Power did the same.
She plays the assistant to Luthen, and her name is Clea. Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so Tony Gilroy says right here, you watch these actors bloom in front of you and you go, I'm writing for her. Let's build that up. Most importantly for me, I couldn't have had anybody misinterpret that relationship between Stellan Skarsgård and Elizabeth Dulau. He says, I did not want anybody to ever think that there was anything romantic or strange between them. And I didn't want anybody to come away from the show thinking that he's manipulated this young girl into some line of thinking. So, he purposely wrote the show to make sure that there was no shipping. I don't mind.
To make sure there was no shipping. To make sure there was no shipping. Okay, what?
He says right here, right in the middle, there are some elements of the Clea and Luthen relationship that I didn't want to leave lingering. They never touch. I don't ever want to see them come from the same bedroom. I don't ever want to suggest that there's anything like that. I don't ever want to say that she's his daughter. Maybe I'm worried. Before anyone else defines it, I'm going to define it.
Wow, are this the words of actual Tony Gilroy himself?
This is the words of Tony Gilroy himself.
Wow.
And Cliff, I wanted to bring this up because this is important. The showrunner lives in the same world and society that we do. He knows what goes on online. He knows what fans do. Okay? He just does, right? We all do. Here is a showrunner who specifically said, I'm going to write this show so definitively before anyone else defines it. That last sentence is key. Before anyone else defines it, I'm going to define it.
Yeah, I see. I see exactly where you're going with this. I see where you're going with this. Okay.
So you see where I'm going with this. This is what I don't. So the question I have for you, Cliff, is the showrunners McPain of Rings of Power keep saying in interviews, "Oh, Galadriel isn't a thing. Oh, Galadriel and Sauron? No, they're not a couple. They're not an item." The problem I have with that is the show as it is on the air, the show as it's written and edited and acted and debuted with, opened up an opportunity for fans to create that dynamic, the Galadriel dynamic.
Certainly they did. That is how they wrote it, and that is how they presented it, especially in season 1. However, as a gentle counterpoint, there's also a lot to be said for the process of manipulation and the gaslighting and all the mental manipulation games that Sauron was playing. It might have been just as much, burning the candle of, is there a possibility for a romantic element, as much as it was, this is the greatest opportunity for vulnerability to be exposed in Galadriel, a vulnerability that Sauron wanted to exploit, whether it was romantic or not. Regardless, whether it was romantic or not, it was about getting the cracks in the pavement open enough so that the water could seep in. And that's what Sauron wanted. That is what he wanted, and that's what he got. And that is the way they presented everything in season 1. That, for better or worse, pissed off a lot of people. Because, my position was always that Galadriel was way too intelligent, and she was far too wise, and emotionally wise and spiritually wise. She was too just too smart for him. And the showrunners were like, we're going to have a more interesting, dramatic story arc with her if we allow the cracks in the pavement to really open up here, and that he can worm his way inside her brain. That's not the same as worming his way inside her heart. It's not to say, Justin, that is really the same wheelhouse. The whole Halbrand, the success of Halbrand was because Halbrand successfully got into her mind. So I look at it a little bit differently than most of the fans who ship the whole Haladriel. And, you know, especially T with Tolkien and everybody else who really is shipping them really hard. Hey, that's
we're
totally
not
fine.
shipping, it's
That's
in the
totally
show.
it's in the
He
show.
ends
But it's
season
also
2.
in the show. It's also in the show that it was an intellectual encroachment, not a romantic encroachment on her.
I'm not
That's
buying
what
it.
I'm trying to
'Cause
say.
Season 2
That's what I'm
ends
trying to
with
say.
him stabbing her in the heart.
Okay, good point. Good point. Good
Season
point.
2 ends with Sauron stabbing her in the heart. By the way, Sauron
it.
and Galadriel have no shared scenes together in all of Season 2. They are not together at all. They're not thinking about each other. There's nothing about Haladriel in all of Season 2 until the last 10 minutes when they have somehow, some way, the showrunners put them back together in a big sword fight, and he stabs Galadriel at the end of Season 2. And then in an interview, after Season 2 came out, an interview question asked, hey, showrunners, will there be any lingering effects, the fact that Sauron stabbed Galadriel where he did, right here? And they said, we cannot comment on that right now.
That's a big comment itself. That's a big comment to say, we have none.
So here you have two different shows with a potential for relationship shipping, and the showrunner, I wanted to point this out because Tony Gilroy, the showrunner of Andor, said, I am so vehemently against that. I don't want that in my show. I don't want that to be a legacy of my show. And he purposely wrote the show so that's not an option. And the question is, Cliff, if McPain are very serious about that not being an option, they would have written it as well, definitively.
I will direct your attention to Laswen. It is so good to have you, Laswen, in the chat, saying, and yeah, I don't think they were careful enough with all the things between Galadriel and Halbrand / Sauron, as Gilroy was, not as careful as Gilroy was with the Clea and Luthen relationship in Andor. I'm with you on that point. Laswen.
All right, let's bring up another clip from showrunner Tony Gilroy.
Andor is a prequel series to that. Yep. It did not seem like an obvious idea. How early did this start percolating to do a television series that would be a prequel of this movie?
After Rogue One, there was a lot of endorphins off the success of that. And Kathy Kennedy had that idea for a couple years. And they tried different variations of it. But the economics of streaming weren't there. You can't really do Star Wars cheap. And they hadn't really picked the lock. And along the way, I kibitzed about what they were doing. And finally, one day, she called and said, you know all the crazy stuff you've been saying to us? We might want to do that.
This is a show that I love to recommend. And obviously, I'm a fan of Star Wars. But I truly believe this is the Star Wars property that it is the least important to be a fan of Star Wars of. Like, I just think if you're a fan of great storytelling and great television, like, this is for you.
Man, that's why I'm here for literally the pizza I'm supposed to deliver tonight is like, you do not have to know anything about Star Wars, like Star Wars, or anything. I mean, to sit down with Andor and make a full meal of it, it was built for that purpose, and it was made by a lot of people. I mean, 2,500 people worked on the show, but it was a good mix of nerds and people who really had to be convinced to come over and work on it because it was Star Wars. So, yeah, no Star Wars aversion should stop you from watching our show.
I mean,
Pause there. Cliff, is Rings of Power required knowledge of Lord of the Rings? Do you need to know a lot about Lord of the Rings to
watch Rings of Power? That is a really interesting point that you're making.
Because I think it's the opposite of what Tony Gilroy did. I think Rings of Power is banking on your nostalgia of Peter Jackson movies.
I was about to say that. I think Rings of Power has a lot more payoff, a lot more narrative payoff, and Easter eggs, and character drops, name drops, and all these little things that are going to benefit you the more familiar you are with Lord of the Rings. Much more familiar.
So, does that hurt or help Rings of Power? And should the movies as well bank on a pre-knowledge of what's come before? Or do you think everything kind of needs to work as a standalone story?
Well, I'm a little distracted by my cat right now, and that's a good thing. It's one of the best blessings I have in my life right here, this little fur ball. But if since we're extrapolating, what kind of things can Rings of Power learn, by example, from Andor, then you're hitting right to the core of it. That would be a great help to Rings of Power if it was made and crafted in such a way that it could invite viewers with minimal nostalgia member berries. I mean, there's a whole lot of member berries going on in Rings of Power. A lot. To the degree that they even took the exact Weta design of the Balrog underneath Khazad-dûm and used it.
We have talked about this many times. In many ways, the show feels like it was originally written for Celebrian.
And yeah, there is something in the blueprint of the story that does really suggest that it might have been written for a Celebrian in the beginning. But you know what else? There's something to be said when you give people an entry point that does not challenge them. And Marvel fatigue has suffered from fans thinking, well, if I'm going to get into this streaming series, how many other films and Marvel series do I have to be familiar with before I can understand this show that I'm about to watch? And that makes people resist watching. It was a problem for Marvel for a while.
And that's something that Tony Gilroy addressed in a separate interview. I don't have a video clip because I think it was a press interview. But Tony Gilroy says that he purposely did not want to use any known characters. He didn't put Palpatine in his show. He didn't put Vader in his show. There's no Luke. There's no Leia. And only
there were a lot of people screaming for
episodes.
it. When are we going to get a cameo of Emperor Palpatine? There was a lot of people making noise about that.
That's right. So the question I have for you, Cliff, is I think you've worked in the biz long enough. You know what happened. They probably wrote the show for Celebrian, and at some point, a studio executive, a very powerful studio executive, says, I didn't pay $1 billion to not use Galadriel. That's the character everyone in the world is familiar with.
Oh my God. You are so right.
And same with The Stranger. Same with The Stranger. Some studio executive looked at McPain and said, I didn't pay $1 billion to not use Gandalf. That guy has to be Gandalf.
Oh, so maybe they were hedging around like it could have been a different of 5 wizards, one of the 5 Istar.
You have 2 main characters in Rings of Power that were obviously not written specifically for Galadriel and Gandalf. Here's Tony Gilroy putting his foot down and using all of his credibility that he's earned in Hollywood to say, I'm not putting Luke in this. No, he's not going to be part of this Red Squadron. And no, Leia's not going to be in here yet. We'll feature Bail Organa by the end, maybe. But no Palpatine, no Vader. None of those characters that are memes, right? And do you think... So the question for you, Cliff, is, now that you've seen Andor, do you think Rings of Power suffers because there's too many familiar characters? And do you think Rings of Power gets better if it gets fewer movie characters? Do you think if we got Glorfindel and some of these other unseen canon characters, the show gets better rather than, meeting some familiar people we met in the movie?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think I'm making an old Benny Hill joke because I'm that kind of an OG dude. I miss Benny Hill. No, the fact that there's so many characters is not a detriment to the Rings of Power. What is a detriment to the Rings of Power if you're trying to zoom in on that level. They have excellent use of bringing in characters that we have always wanted to see, particularly Círdan and Tom Bombadil, and bringing in side characters that we've always wanted and have never ever seen. But they also do things that are a bit messy with a squished chronological timeline, and and kind of not vaguely disobeying, but specifically disobeying the rule of Durin and the way the name Durin is used for a future king in the line of the Longbeards. Within the line of Longbeards, they kind of have both Durins being alive at the same time as father and son. And that's just kind of, in terms of the original lore, that's messy enough to make it confusing. And, but the average viewer who isn't a real book lore person is going to be like, okay, that's just all about the father-son relationship. And to me, it worked. I mean, oh my God, the actors, Owain Arthur, Peter Cullen, the way that they work, I believe that's his name.
But why
they work so well
really
together. They work really well
translated
together.
Into pop culture meme. But I mean, I'm still getting Andor memes on my timeline. But as soon as Rings of Power season 2 ended, no one's talking about Durin, or any of the characters in Rings of Power. I mean, the only one that gets daily active social media posts is Haladriel. Sorry, but
how about that?
What makes Andor different that everybody wants to talk about every single character in Andor, and Rings of Power does not have that? Because we already shown early in the show that they have the same viewer stats. So the same amount of people are watching both shows. It's kind of equal. So why aren't we getting the same amount of traction in the social commentary? I mean, everybody's talking about every single character in Andor.
Because the writing is so much different. The writing in Andor shows, it doesn't explain with a ham-fisted approach. It really shows you the difficulties that the characters are facing, and in a very nuanced way, uses exceptional dialogue to show what people are sacrificing. The entire show of Andor is about sacrifice. It is definitely about what people sacrifice. And the Rings of Power is not so thematically centered. It is thematically centered on mystery boxing. Lots of mystery boxing. And that's not the best way to write that kind of a story in the world of Tolkien. They're doing their own thing because they want to, and that's fine. They're totally doing their own thing. But the difference with Andor is that the structure of the story is driven by so many really down-to-earth, relatable characters who are doing things on the highest level of personal sacrifice through every step, every episode.
Isn't that what Tolkien wrote, though?
But that's not what J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay have presented.
But am I correct, though, that Tolkien's core stories are about average people of all races making the greatest sacrifices?
Well, here, the focus of The Lord of the Rings, from the Hobbit's point of view, is from the conceit of the Red Book of Westmarch being authored by who? Bilbo and his nephew, Frodo. And so it's not from the elves' point of view. It's not from the king's or the kingdom's point of view. It's from the Hobbit's point of view, from a really ground level. We're talking people living in with their feet in the dirt. And the thing that allows for so much stumbling around with Rings of Power thematic focus is that some of it's from the point of view of the politics of the court and the court of Numenor and the royalty and the demands of the faithful versus the demands of the unfaithful. And then it's from the
Still
point
don't
of view.
understand what you're talking about. I've never seen any faithful in the show, but that's a
In
different
what?
discussion.
In the second season of Rings of Power, the Kemen and his men go in and destroy the temple, where the faithful are, putting the little lights in the water.
Those aren't faithful. Those are people
Yeah.
going to a funeral.
No, they were faithful,
Everyone
and
goes to
then-
church on a funeral, and everyone goes to church on Easter Sunday, even
Well,
if you're not
by
a
the-
faithful person.
By the end of the series, by the end of season 2, they're executing a pogrom, an absolute bloody pogrom against the faithful of Numenor.
I
They
don't
come
where
after
it's
them.
not in the show. You're bringing into the show something that's not in the show.
Don't be all don't get your panties in a twist, honey. Don't.
But that's the bigger point. But that's the bigger point with Andor.
That's where
if there's drama going on in Andor, it's on screen. We are meant to care about Gorman.
The soldiers of Numenor run through the streets, attacking people and taking the faithful prisoner, and that's
What
when his
faithful?
daughter, the people who are
they
faithful
faithful
to
to?
the ways of the Valar, faithful to the ways of the elves and the
That's
Valar.
not in the show.
And then
It-
it is. You
nowhere
saw
in the
it.
show.
Did you see the same bloody show that I saw, Justin?
I saw people
And-
go to church for a funeral because
And
everyone
no.
goes to church for
Oh my
funerals.
gosh, Susan,
And
please
they
tell
put
him.
the candles in the boats.
Susan,
and
And then at the end, why does his daughter come and say, Father, you have to run. They're coming for you. And then Elendil hides and he escapes from the city while there's smoke burning in the distance. And that's because they're executing a pogrom against the faithful. That actually happened in
Then
season
why-
2. Why am I arguing with you about this, brother? brother.
Because
It
I don't
happened.
remember
It
that.
happened.
It didn't
Well, it
click
happened.
with me. I don't even remember, and I watched the show.
Oh my gosh.
Why
happened.
do we remember the Gorman massacre more than the Numenor massacre?
Then this is where we can underscore the point. No one understood or cared, but the stakes were not built up to see what was at stake for the faithful Numenorians, that they were about to be attacked and taken prisoner by a military presence that was, commanded by Ar-Pharazôn, who had pretty much taken over command of Numenor since the queen was blind. And, they're like, he's the one who took the sign from the eagle, and the eagle actually came for her, and he took it as a sign that the
I don't
eagle was
buy
there
that.
to
That's
bless him.
not in the show.
Instead, it's in the
not
show.
in the show that the
It's
eagle
totally in
came
the
for
show.
her.
Well, okay, when you're not focusing on Haladriel all the time, there was another
Don't
show
look
that
at the
happened.
chat. I want you to
Thank
tell
you,
me.
Angel. Thank
I-
you, Angel.
I am not
Okay.
part of the Star Wars EU. I have never heard of
right.
Gorman until this TV show. I never read the books. I never watched the cartoons. I knew nothing about Gorman.
I think the Gorman
know
massacre was mentioned in other legends stories
and I didn't
novels.
read any of them.
No, you didn't read any of them. I know.
Just
Okay.
like Numenor. So
But
why do I feel something watching the Gorman massacre in
Mm-hmm.
Andor when I knew nothing about it going into the show?
That's good. That's the difference
here,
between.
Here you are telling me about some sort of
Well, I didn't say it was as impactful. I did not say that what happened in season 2 of Rings of Power was as well written or as impactful as what we saw in Andor. And in fact, you and I agree. You and I now are in a point of agreement that it was not. It was poorly written to show an actual pogrom being executed against the citizens of Numenor, the ones that the government body did not trust anymore, and they wanted to take them prisoner. It did not play with the powerful consequences and the impactful feeling that we felt watching the Gorman massacre. And you know why it didn't play that way? Because they did not build it up properly. They didn't set it up. And because they did not set it up, they didn't get the payoff. You have to properly set these things up many episodes ahead of time with much more specific things so you can have such a huge moment, a historical moment in Middle-earth. And it was also a historical moment in the world of George Lucas's Star Wars. Both of them big historical moments, but one didn't play as good as the other. And the difference is the setup and the world building that makes you care, that makes you really identify with and care for an entire subset of the citizens of Numenor who are actually, they convey their spirituality and their belief in the Valar in their own way, but wasn't conveyed to the audience. The audience didn't. Well, there was one funeral where one of our minor characters gets killed by Kemen, and when we get all that moment was building up Kemen to be a really bad villainous character. Okay, well now we know that how horrible and amoral Kemen really is, but we didn't. We already knew that. Exactly.
It added nothing
exactly.
to his character. We're
And we
already
didn't
sold on
learn
the
anything
idea.
about the faithful, and we didn't learn anything about the social cultural structure of the Numenorian populace. And that's
Meanwhile,
what we
I know a
that's what we
lot
should have
about
learned.
Gorman. I know that there's a rebel faction. I know that there's political intrigue. I know that the city council of Gorman don't believe what the rebels believe. And I know that there's internal strife among the city council on whether to take action on different things.
Yeah, well, thank you, Spartan. The Gorman Massacre was actually mentioned in the animated series Rebels. I'm sure it was also referenced in one of those Legends novels.
And it's
but
been
yes,
referenced in games and whatever. And I'm telling you, I
referenced
didn't
in
watch
video
any
games
of those.
and in the whole big Dave Filoni universe. And now the shadow, the overwhelming shadow of Dave Filoni on the Star Wars universe cannot be understated, and it makes it even more
that's why Tony
impressive.
Gilroy said in that clip,
That's why it's even more impressive that he did that.
You don't need to know anything about anything. That's
what makes Mr. Gilroy's work even more impressive. Yes.
I guess everything you're talking about Numenor, I guess proves the point that Rings of Power is not telling the story of Numenor. It requires you to already know the story of Numenor.
Yep. Sure was. I mean, the existence of this socio-cultural upheaval that's happening has been so lightly touched on in seasons 1 and 2. I mean, it has been barely mentioned a couple of times. Just a couple of times.
Maybe I do need to rewatch season 2. I think our Discord is planning on scheduling a group season 2 rewatch of Rings of Power.
Yes.
Maybe I do need to freshen up my memory.
Okay,
so let me ask you this before we move on to our next topic.
It's a horrifying thing when there's a political body that will use military force with a pogrom against innocent civilians. And we see it happen in our real world. There are so many horrible, tragic parallels in our real world that I won't even mention. But if the Rings of Power TV series had really handled it differently, then they would have had that whole pogrom happen in season 2, and it would have been a lot more impactful. It really would have. But they didn't give us enough of the socio-cultural strife. The strife that is all the build-up to that moment.
So let me ask you this. Pretend I don't know anything about what's coming in Numenor.
Okay.
You know what needs to happen in Numenor. There are a couple big beats that need to happen. So let me ask you this. Now that you've seen Andor, what does the writer's room need to do in Rings of Power for the Numenor story to pay off as emotionally powerful as Gorman does?
Oh gosh, what do they need to do? No one's ever hired.
The fall of Numenor is more tragic than the fall of Gorman.
It is. It is.
So what? How do they do? How do they do it better?
Lean into the spirituality of Professor Tolkien. And if Tea with Tolkien was still with us in the chat, or World of Tolkien, those are content creators who specialize in the spiritual world that Tolkien was observing in his own Catholic beliefs, his own Christianity, and his beliefs that seeped into the work, The Lord of the Rings, and a lot of other amazing things in his sub-creation. And the showrunners did not lean into that enough. They have not leaned, and I mean really, they have not really gone into the metaphysical things that make some of the Numenorian men believe in the Valar and believe in Valinor as a holy place, as a place of reverence. A thing like the elves, all the elves have the ultimate reverence for that life they came from in Valinor. But only the faithful in Numenor share that spiritual attitude, and that hasn't been explored It really needs to be explored much, much, much more.
For the story of Numenor to
Yes.
really hit emotionally. Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So,
Uh-huh.
but counterpoint, Andor
Yeah.
refuses to talk
Yeah.
about the Force. Andor has no mysticism in it.
I was shocked. I was shocked that there was even one character who's even slightly on the margins of being a Force wielder. I was really surprised to see that
doesn't
in
it
Andor.
feel that the McPain have chosen a similar path with Rings of Power to avoid all mysticism and religion?
The mysticism of the elves is boiled down to a chunk of mithril healing a leaf that has rotten mold on it.
I know.
Like,
So
what is
the
it?
question is, can Rings of Power, can Lord of the
That's
Rings,
about it.
can Lord of the Rings or Rings of Power do what Andor did and avoid mysticism? Or is it just not possible with Tolkien's stories?
No, they need to lean in very heavily into the
So
metaphysical
that's
concepts.
the big change that needs to happen going forward.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I've been saying that for years, dude. I have not changed my tune on this. I've been saying this a long time.
This is another quote from Tony Gilroy.
Why, and
I'm
here's
writing
why.
about-
Hold on. Before you get to that quote to Tony Gilroy, how about the quote that I said to JD when we were on the train going down to San Diego Comic-Con, where he came downstairs and walked up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, Quick Beam, is that you? Hi, Clifford, it's great to meet you." And I said to him one thing: are you going to make this show about the thematic power that Tolkien wanted to drive home about death versus deathlessness? Because that's written in Tolkien's published letters. It is something that Professor Tolkien very specifically said. This story is about death and the pursuit of deathlessness. And he looked me right in the eyes and he said, "I think you'll be very pleased. I think you'll be very pleased." That's what the showrunner said to me.
And were you very pleased when you saw the show?
Within 60 seconds of me having my first encounter with him on the train, he's like, "You'll be very pleased, I think." And I said, that's all that matters to me, is that you thematically dive deep into that. And Rings of Power, at this point, is not on its strongest legs, to put it politely. And it needs to be on stronger legs by leaning into Professor Tolkien's deliberate thematic power. That is so deliberate in the Numenorian. It's a cascade of events that leads to the biggest tragedy in the history of Arda. Well, maybe, if not the War of Wrath itself, at the end of the First Age. But come on. It really needs to lean into that. I don't know. That's all I got to say about that.
Okay. Tony Gilroy says, I'm writing about how I feel about all the revolutions, about all the insurrections. People legitimately fail to recognize how puny their individualism is. The narcissistic belief that you live in some unique time, it's shocking. We all do it. I do it. That is not the pattern of history.
Gosh, what a perceptive man. He is one of the most perceptive writers in existence, in all of show business. He is one of the most perceptive people.
What if I
read that
told
again?
you?
I'm writing about how I feel about all of the revolutions, about all the insurrections. People legitimately fail to recognize how puny their individualism is. The narcissistic belief that you live in some unique time, it's shocking. We all do it. I do it. But that is not the pattern of history. He is so perceptive. So perceptive.
You know what, Cliff?
That's just amazing to me.
J.R.R. Tolkien could have said this, and you would have believed me.
Well, Professor Tolkien wouldn't have said it in that way, but he might have said something similar to that. Indeed.
Here's another comment about from the fans. I also think that Gilroy cares very much about Star Wars. He just cares about it as a uniquely American mythology, rather than as an outlet through which to canonize Dash Rendar.
Which is some random Lucasfilm character, right?
And they say, and the quote tweet is, "This is key to Gilroy's deal. I think the original Star Wars was a seismic major movie moment, a defining bit of American pop culture. There's a reason the Library of Congress wants a copy. He seems stoked he got to talk to George Lucas for one phone call."
Yep, I agree. A uniquely American pop culture mythology. In much the same way, if we're going to draw this analog to its logical conclusion, the analog that Professor Tolkien wanted to have a unique mythology for England that was rooted in the language of England. And the
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. You got it. Also,
Yes.
the last
Yes, I get it.
minute, the internet it has this term called glup shitto, which is basically
What's that?
random stupid characters from the Star Wars universe that people like Dave Filoni love to throw in for fan service. Dash Rendar is like a fan service character because he was in a video game 30 years ago.
Right.
Here's the thing about Rings of Power. It's the opposite of what this is. Rings of Power is like, let's throw in some Ents. Let's throw in a creature from the deepest darkness. Let's throw in a Balrog.
You mean the nameless thing?
The nameless thing. Let's throw in a Balrog. It's already season 2, and we already have a Balrog. Like, it feels like Rings of Power is operating on an agenda of throwing in all of those random ass characters.
Looking at you, Tom Bombadil. I know.
Let's throw in Tom Bombadil.
I get it. I get it.
So,
hey, I totally get it. I understand. Okay.
And look,
okay.
Look,
yes.
I can see the benefits of both paths. I can see the benefits of throwing in fan favorite nostalgia characters, and I can see the benefits of Tony Gilroy doing what this says. So the question I have for you, Cliff, is which way, Western man, which way does Rings of Power go forward to be better? Does it lean more into the characters and the creatures we haven't seen, like Bjornings and thinking foxes and all the wonderful magic creatures, or does Rings of Power take a step back and say we just need to tell a political, religious, humanist story of Numenor? Where do you want this show to land?
We don't need the sentient fox, because that was just a pastoral moment where Professor Tolkien was indulging himself a little bit like the wind in the willows. Oh, look, there's Badger. He's going to go visit Mr. Toad at Toad Hall. Oh, okay. There's Angus McBadger going to visit Toad. And there's Rat. Rat is going to visit as well. And Mole. Mole wants to stop by and have lunch with Toad. That was the little joke with the fox observing the hobbits. That was just a little pastoralism, a little bit of an inside joke. So, but but Rings of Power is definitely going to benefit by bringing in other characters if they are essential to the thematic through line that you are writing. I don't know what they're going to do with the the overall story arc of season 3, because we've had the battle at Ost Enithil, we've had the sack of Eregion, and we've had the retreat where the dwarves were covering Elrond's ass, while Elrond, and in this case Gil-galad, the High King, were in retreat away from Eregion, and then all of a sudden we're at the moment where they discovered Rivendell, or the place that would ultimately be Rivendell. That was the big Easter egg surprise at the end of episode 8, season 2. Hey,
That's
look,
gonna be
we're in Rivendell. That is all. That's where they stood, and
That's too close to everything.
That's Rivendell. That's a hidden valley where they're hidden and protected from the enemy.
Why didn't
the
we
enemy
see
of the
them
free
marching
peoples.
through the forest like we see in Last of Us to get there?
I'm surprised they didn't give us a title card. Remember the big title card where
Oh, the
Southlands
Mordor?
changed
Yeah.
into Mordor? I'm fully surprised that they didn't put a big Rivendell
So should
Right there.
the Eagles talk
or
in this
Imladris.
show?
Imladris.
Should the Eagles talk, especially the Numenorian Eagles?
I would hope that they would, but I've always hoped they would, but no one's going to do that. Even in the animated The War of the Rohirrim, they used an excuse that, oh, there's a language that the eagles can speak, but only the wizards know
This show
how to
would get
speak
better
it.
if they get
So-
weird. We said this before season 2.
Yeah.
The weirder you get, the better the show becomes. And I do think that you don't need to follow Andor on everything, but you do need to follow it on the writing. But you need to commit to some of the things.
The characters that are brought in shouldn't be brought in for fan service. They should be brought in because of their thematic power and the purpose to which you use the characters to support your overall story arc.
Keir Dan is a good example. He didn't really do much in season 2. He was there for fan service.
Well, he shaved. He was there to shave with a little scallop shell. That's what he did.
my God.
Or was it a clam shell?
So here's another thing that I feel like Rings of Power could learn from Andor. Check this out, Cliff. The director
okay.
of season 2, the Gorman Massacre episodes, started
Wild.
his career doing documentaries about the Afghanistan war.
No way, really? Well, that makes a lot of sense then. Wow.
Let me repeat. They hired a director for the Gorman Massacre episodes.
Wow, that's
who
kind
had
of
done
awesome.
documentaries about the Afghanistan war.
And it plays that way. The intensity of those scenes plays like nothing else I've seen in years. And that's because we're looking at this through a classic lens of real world drama that we've seen. Yeah, remember the Battle of Algiers? That famous movie, The Battle of Algiers. And Janus Metz, who is the director we're talking about, he very specifically brought in famous elements from that movie where all those innocent civilians were massacred in Algiers. Famous moment in history in our primary world. So there in the secondary world of Star Wars, they were able to extrapolate with great verisimilitude. And that is what made everybody just go bonkers over these episodes. That's why the emotional impact was there, because of the verisimilitude. It's really amazing. Really amazing.
So Cliff,
Kind of like this little guy. He's really amazing.
we love the fact that they hired Amazon hired 3 female women directors for season 2 of Rings of Power, and love that 2 of them are back for season 3. But a lot of all of the directors, minus J.A. Bayona, they all just have TV show credits. They all just they're jobbers. Their career is doing episodes of television, and Prime Video keeps hiring well experienced directors of episodic television.
Yes.
Here, Andor is hiring outside of the television world. They're hiring storytellers from war-torn countries. So the question is Lord of the Rings too much fantasy to go as gritty as what they've done here in hiring this guy? Is there too much going on in Lord of the Rings of Power to hire someone that has done a movie about the fall of an empire?
No. No, they need to recalibrate. They just need to recalibrate.
In the director's chair, especially.
Yeah, they just need to recalibrate these things. And why not look at Andor as a textbook example of how you dial in real people who are suffering real circumstances under situations that are really awful. Not just, oh, here's a character, she's brand new, she's a powerful elf archer, and now we're going to kill her. We're going to kill her in the next 7 minutes, and we're going to have this big slow motion spectacle of her death on the battlefield. Well, did you earn it? Have you built up that character way before the moment you killed her on the battlefield?
Folks,
You know the
this
one
is
I'm
my
talking about.
20th year of podcast.
What's that?
I was just queuing up something.
Okay, you're queuing up something, but literally, they need to earn these moments, and that needs more careful consideration in how you bring the characters to the story and what they're doing.
Speaking of hiring, one of the writers of Andor season 2 was Bo Willimon. He is the showrunner and creator of House of Cards. He was the showrunner of House of Cards,
Right,
which was
Bo
an
Willimon.
American version of the British show. So Bo Willimon, House of Cards. So Cliff, there's a lot of political intrigue in Andor, especially the first 6 episodes of season 2. It's nothing but political intrigue. So the question is, and so intelligently they said, well, if we're going to have a show about political intrigue, let's hire one of the best TV shows about political intrigue.
Okay.
So the question is, does Rings of Power have political intrigue as a main part of the story going forward?
Rings of Power has political intrigue, which is fueled by metaphysical, cultural unrest. You can't have one without the other. Do you understand these are not mutually exclusive states? They are not mutually exclusive states of storytelling at all. The reason why there's such turmoil in Numenor is because the men of Numenor are jealous of the immortality that they perceive the elves have, and the bad guys in that position of metaphysical unrest get manipulated by Sauron to be 20 times worse in their metaphysical unrest. And then that leads to that, in fact, that moment where they went and attacked the faithful citizens of Numenor, it was so poorly done, you didn't even remember it. Months later, you, Justin, didn't even remember that it happened. That's how much of a small, almost nothing impact it had on you, except that we see Elendil in exile. He is exiled out of his own kingdom, and he runs away on his horse. And at that point, unfortunately, he still thinks that his son, Isildur, had perished pointlessly in the Southlands. So the character is being pushed around. Poor Elendil, he's getting a whole rough bag of things. Gotta admit, it's pretty rough for him. But it was not handled with the backup. I'm speaking as an anthropologist point of view, not as a writer right now, because these moments in time in human history don't happen in a vacuum. And that's the point that Tony Gilroy made on that tweet you showed several minutes ago. So if you want people to understand that kind of dramatic societal upheaval, and that is political, but it is fueled by the jealousy, the metaphysical jealousy that the men of Numenor do not appreciate the gift of men, and the gift of men that was given to them by Iluvatar, the One, is to have a different life and a different destiny after this life in this manifestation is done, and you die, and you shed this mortal coil. Then you get to go off to a different spiritual destiny that the elves do not even understand. And the elves, in a contrary-wise position, are jealous and have a misunderstanding about the gift of men. But the gift of the Eldar, which is you get to live forever, is not really like Anne Rice Interview with the Vampire forever. You're immortal only as long as you don't get your body chopped up by an orc, or you fall off of a cliff and break all the bones in your body, which Galadriel happened to do at the end of season 2. So, assuming that all those tree branches broke her fall when she jumped.
Why didn't they show that?
Crazy.
It's so.
I know, it's
stupid.
crazy
They
pants.
could have just.
It's crazy pants.
Well, let's pull
Crazy
up a
pants.
clip of Bo Willimon, the
Okay.
showrunner of House of Cards and a writer on Andor.
Okay, here we go.
territory to dive into. If the first season of Andor was the education of Cassian Andor, and we meet all these other people along the way, I think season 2, and I mean, this is not a Tony-approved message, so but I think you would agree with it. I would characterize it as, what is the cost of rebellion? What is the cost? And that's sort of in the shadow of where we all know we're headed, which is Rogue One, that a lot of people have to make sacrifices in order for rebellion to launch. You can see that on a grand scale in terms of, say, the prison arc in season 1, how many people are being affected by this oppressive regime. But it's also important to really make it relatable on a personal scale. And through Bix, I think more than almost any other character in some ways, in a consistent way in season 2, you're seeing what the cost of devoting your life to this is. And I remember Tony really wanting to talk about that arc between Cassian and Bix in episodes 4 through 6 as here, in some ways, they're attempting to live a domestic life. They have their apartment. It happens to be a safe house. Like, they go shopping for groceries, but they have to be really careful when they do it. How do you manage some semblance of humanity under these incredibly high stakes? And when you never know what's around the corner and you're always looking over your shoulder and you're dealing with the PTSD and trauma that comes from the work that you're doing, that in some ways, if we had Luthen Rael say in season 1 that he is given everything, that he essentially is a shadow. He doesn't have a life, that he will never even see the fruits of his labors. That here you're seeing that sort of mid-process with two people that are trying to make the bare minimum of love and sanity work for them. And so her arc during those 3 episodes is really trying to delve into that in a way that feels very human and heartbreaking, but also has the satisfaction by the end of it, of that arc, seeing how the work is its own salvation. She is literally able to destroy her demon. That doesn't necessarily mean that all the nightmares are going to go away or that every wound is completely healed, but it sure as hell helps.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Mm-hmm.
Is any of that applicable to Lord of the Rings?
Quite a bit, I would say. Quite a bit.
I mean, guys, you have to remember, we're headed toward a giant battle of Sauron and half of Middle Earth, fighting against the other half. And we're not just talking like Lord of the Rings movies where it's like orcs versus everyone else. It's literally like Tolkien writes about dwarves fighting dwarves, brother against brother, elves fighting elves, men fighting men. Like, Sauron really does recruit half of all races to his side.
Indeed. Absolutely. My gosh, if it goes all the way down to the wire, right down to season 5, we know the ending of this TV series happens with the last alliance of elves and men fighting on the plain, on the plateau of Gorgoroth against Sauron himself, just as it was shown in the opening 3 minutes prologue of the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
Wild. Well, yeah, and if it's going to get to that, then we're going to end up...
you can totally see that even Elrond, there is different elves take different sides, and I wouldn't be surprised if Celeborn takes Sauron's side.
That's the silliest thing I've heard you say in a long time.
Just
that is
don't
so
put
silly.
it past McPain. That McPain, we're talking about a couple Star Runners that made Elrond kiss his future mother-in-law. Nothing is off the table with these guys. And if you want to show a personal connection of a couple that are separated because of their allegiance to Sauron's path and the other path?
No, well, if Celeborn appears and is suddenly in allegiance with Sauron, then there's something very, very wrong. And at that point, I would probably just stop watching. There's just something very wrong there. It's so silly.
We've gone past so many points of I'm going to stop watching.
Spartan, you're right. Spartan says the elves did not fight for Sauron in the Last Alliance. Every other race, yeah, including men and dwarves and others. on the side of Sauron, but
All
not
right,
the elves.
all right, all right.
But not the
Kelborn
elves.
is not going to do that. All right,
So you're
we're
so
gonna-
silly.
We'll back off that.
Yeah,
Well,
Susan's like, good night. You know, we know what, we love you guys. Thank you for putting up with this. Thank you for putting up with this. That's why I'm here. Good night, Susan. We love you. But this is why I'm here to check your head at the door, son. I'm gonna check your head at the door.
Well, look,
Missy.
I hope this is just a sample. And look, there's tons of not documentaries. There's tons of interviews with Tony Gilroy on the internet. And Bo Willimon. There's so many places you can read articles: Vanity Fair, New York Times, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline. YouTube has a bunch of video interviews. Tony Gilroy has been on this huge press tour talking about how he made Andor and he lets it all, like, there's so many stories out there. So I love that. I don't think that Rings of Power should ever feel like Andor, because it was boring. And sometimes the first 6 episodes of season 2 of Andor were boring, but I think that there's a lot of lessons to be learned about the writing and the quality of the writing and the decisions being made.
A lot of people have a different tolerance for what is called quiet storytelling. And you call it boring. There was nothing at all boring about Andor to me. But I did recognize when the story was quiet. And I appreciate when a story can dial it down and be intimate and quiet and still very powerful.
I think Numenor has to go there. It has to get political. It has to get religious. And the way to show religion is a personal journey.
Very much. Look, I mean, a lot of people complain about Miyazaki's film The Wind Rises and say, oh, it's slow. It's so slow. And I'm like, yeah, I like a slow burn. I like a slow burn. No, I mean, the people thought that there was boring parts in The Boy and the Heron. I'm like, no, there's nothing boring. There's something about how an artist, especially a film director, can encapsulate silence and use those moments of silence to build forward a growing sense of tension. That is what Andor was exceptionally good at. It's not boring. It's just using quiet in an effective way. That's my take on it.
Imran in the chat room says, Cyril's death in Andor was perfectly written, where Cassian Andor had no idea who this guy is attacking him. Yet Cyril has been obsessed with him for so long. Question, Cliff. We all formed a bond with Cyril, who's a bad guy.
Surprisingly,
in the show.
Surprisingly, his twisted little relationship with Dedra that's my ship. I'm sailing on that ship.
It's not a ship.
With those
they
two
slept
characters
together in the show. The lights turn off. Like, it's
I'm
not even
totally,
a ship.
I'm totally on that ship because they have the most twisted, messed up relationship.
Is there any
it's wild.
relationship?
It's wild.
Is there any
So
relationship in Rings of Power that has approached the level of intensity and enthusiasm and reaction?
Yeah, the relationship between Celebrimbor and Anatar. Yeah, I'm shipping that. Poor Celebrimbor, and an unbelievable performance from those two actors, Charles Edwards and Charlie Vickers. Both of them elevated. They elevated season 2 so much because of that twisted, weird relationship that was going on. I loved it. It was great.
Well, I think congrats to Tony Gilroy and the entire team of 2,500 artisans and craftsmen that made Andor a success. It's been submitted to the Emmy Awards for 23 Emmys.
Wow.
We're still a month away from hearing the nominations. But Cliff, in your opinion, right now, does Rings of Power stand a chance to win any Emmys against Andor?
Production design, music, go for it. Bear McCreary, take the trophy. It's yours. Bear McCreary for the win.
There you go.
For the win. Yes.
All right. Well,
Anonymous girl says, I have some hardcore Star Wars fans who refuse to watch Andor at all, since it isn't the traditional Skywalker storyline or the presence of the Force being actively used. You, Justin, what do you say to that? You're a hardcore Star Wars fan. What do you say to that?
I think
Because I
Rings
can't
of
imagine
Power-
avoiding it for any reason.
I think Rings of Power was made for fans like that.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
Rings of Power
Okay.
creators and studio made a choice to make a TV show for those types of fans who
Right.
expect to see Ents, who expected to see Balrogs, who expect not to get too caught up in the nitty-gritty politics
Okay.
and religious nastiness. Like, save that
Yeah.
for the adults. I think Rings of Power made a choice to make a show like for your friends who refuse to watch Andor because it doesn't include any space.
So
wizards.
it had, yeah. Rings of Power is definitely trying to parlay the familiar. They're purveyors of the familiar, and yet they still have a lot more to explore to get to the real nuts and bolts of what happens with the downfall of Numenor. They've really got to get there. Really.
I'll give you the final word, and then you can take us out. But my final thought on Andor is the show itself treats the audience with respect. We are included in all of the reveals for the bad side and the good side, and the tension that we feel as audience is what's going to happen when that other person finds out about the information we just found out. There's no mystery boxes in Andor. The audience is treated with respect. We're brought into the room. We're brought into the boardroom of Director Krennic's master plan. It's not a mystery. They tell us from episode 2. They tell us exactly what they're going to do.
Literally going into Hitler's mountain top retreat where all the generals met and made their plans for the Holocaust. That's what that was. They recreated that.
And we keep saying it again. You got to treat the audience with respect, especially with Tolkien. We're all well-read and very smart, and it's okay to bring us in on the drama because the excitement of watching, the tension of watching the show for us is how will it unfold. And if we get to a point in Rings of Power where the big battle is coming and we have no idea how Sauron's forces are going to play the battlefield, I think it's going to be a big loss. We need transparency into Sauron's machinations.
Yes. Well, you can expect that there will be a point, if they stay true to the book, but if we get to that point where Sauron permits himself to be taken captive by Ar-Pharazôn, and he gets to be taken back to Numenor as a prisoner, and then he uses all of his guile, all of his many, many influential, horrible ways of beguiling and manipulating people, and he's going to take it down to that level. And Numenor will be corrupted from within. Okay, so that is Jar Jar's skull. Oh my gosh, is that a Gungan? Is that the skull of a Gungan? I can't believe you're showing me this.
Not only is it a skull of a Gungan in the final episode of Andor Season 2, that is a Sith medallion embedded in his skull on his snout.
No way.
This is an actual in-universe acknowledgement of a long-held fan theory that Jar
Jar
was
wow.
a Sith Lord all along. There's a long-held fan theory that has no basis in anything. It's crazier than Haladriel. That Jar Jar Binks was
wild.
a Sith master, and he was always part of the Sith. And he helped Jar Jar intentionally helped Palpatine gain control as part of the Sith Order. And here we have in Luthen's archive,
in his antique shop,
there's an actual shot of a Gungan skull with a Sith medallion embedded in his skull.
That is the wildest thing.
But
that
this is what I mean. As serious as Andor is, they still let the fan service out in a few ways.
Yeah,
and you know
they
what?
sure
Bail
did.
Organa says the line once in the entire show. May the force
May
be
the
with
force
you.
be with you.
And
Yes.
you know what? Back to the talk we had earlier in the show. Should they recast Saruman? They freaking recast Bail Organa, and it was fine.
Yeah, of course, it was totally fine. I love Jimmy Smits. I've always loved Jimmy Smits. But I've got no problem with them recasting.
So, final thoughts. What can Rings of Power learn from Andor?
Hold on. It was Benjamin Bratt. I love Benjamin Bratt. He's really cool and amazing and rather handsome. So, I'm totally down with Benjamin Bratt being a simple replacement. It's fine. It works fine. But closing thoughts. Hi, Angel. Welcome back. No, we're actually closing now. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes, and we're actually closing the show. What was the question, Justin? What was
Final
what?
thoughts on what Rings of Power should take away from Andor?
Write your characters from a different perspective. That's it. You have to write your characters with much more care, and you have to write them from a different perspective. Because, like I said, in The Lord of the Rings, that narrative works because it's from the Hobbit's point of view, saying how a very small, insignificant person like a hobbit got all caught up in the great moments of the great and the very wise and all of the machinations of the world. And if you want to have Rings of Power work, you need to bring your character's point of view from there and have that work. And that's why Andor works, because it's people on street level living under the oppression of the Empire, and they're living on the streets of Coruscant. They're living in the wheat fields on the other planet, and they're living on Gorman, and they're being oppressed. And if you want to see Middle Earth from that point of view, then take the time to carefully construct characters who are going to give us that realism and that real point of view of what is happening in Middle Earth, not just from the position of your high seat on the throne, in the throne room, and your high position, but other characters who are from a really different point of view. And, that means that Theo might be one of the key elements. Theo himself, the kid, the dirty, grubby teenager from the Southlands.
It doesn't even need to be an existing character. You can introduce someone brand new this season.
And he is. Theo is a brand new character introduced into the series.
Well,
is he not?
He'd be 3 seasons in. That's what I'm saying.
But,
you don't have to rely on pre-existing things. Just tell a good story.
Yeah, but
with characters.
You gotta bring it from a much more grounded position of what the characters are dealing with and what they desire, what they want to do, and there's the potential. I still see lots of really great potential there. I still see it.
Andor does a good job of showing why certain people choose to side with the Empire.
Well, yeah, and if I want to understand the downfall of Numenor, then you need to show people who are with the concept of an afterlife and people who are not down for the concept of an afterlife. And that's why they have this jealousy with the elves being quote unquote immortal. You've really got to dial that in. And I hope that is the biggest area of improvement that we get to see in season 3 of the Rings of Power. And now we're going to sign off, everybody, because as we all know, all good things must come to an end. It has been an excellent show. Thank you for joining us, all the people in the live chat from our wonderful Discord server, and people from Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Twitch, and Twitter, and everybody in between. I will never call it X. So yeah, hey, thanks everybody for being part of our wonderful worldwide community of Tolkien fans. It is dynamite to have you all here, as always, every week, right here on Torn Tuesday. This is the website, theonering.net, which is forged by the fans, for the fans of J.R.R. Tolkien. Look us up on social media. You can go to theonering.net and just take out the dot, like that, And you'll find us at The Wondering Net on all socials. And you can follow me on Blue Sky and on Instagram as QuickBeam2000. Good night, everybody, with all my love and appreciation for you being with us again on this very merry gathering. It's been quite uplifting and really interesting having this conversation with all of you today. Thank you, and good night. Or better yet, buenos noches y buena suerte. Good night and good luck.